With the impending brand split on Monday Night Raw, they teased possibly breaking up teams, with a New Day in the ring dropping a promo regarding why they shouldn't be broken up. Now, it was an awkward, weird segment. We didn't really find anything out about the brand split, but what we did kind of understand is WWE will be teasing tensions of possible breakups of groups and tag teams going into that brand split. And we're going to talk and discuss why it's, one, a good thing for WWE. Not necessarily that they do it, but how they can break up teams or feuds, etc., going into this brand split come July 19th. And I think it really could drive some interesting TV ratings and must-see television. Now, when you look at the brand split, WWE.com posted a poll about which team you would least like to see break up. And as of this video, 37% voted for the New Day, and 26% voted for Enzo and Big Cass as who they would least like to see break up, which makes sense. Both groups are very entertaining and work very, very well together. Next up on the poll was the Club with about 11% of the vote, and then the Wyatts and Usos were tied at 9%, and then the Dudleys. Now, I actually would be okay with the Dudleys breaking up, because if you ever saw Bully Ray's character in TNA, Bully Ray, he actually I liked it. The 51-50, he was really good at being a heel, and I kind of dug it. Now, when it comes to the other teams and possibly breaking it up, we also have to think about feuds that could possibly be broken up or ended that would help drive ratings. Now, when I look at the current landscape of the WWE, and I'm looking at who I could see possibly being benefited from breaking up, you look at a group like the New Day, and I don't want to see them broken up. I think that they still have a long way to go. It would be interesting to see if they were still champions, but they were on separate shows, which gave them a reason. If they didn't have a hard split that said, okay, if you're on this show, you cannot appear on the other show, it would kind of, push the boundaries. You got a tag team of one, so they could kind of compete anywhere. They could keep defending their titles. And there was speculation about possibly a second world title being added, possibly second tag team titles being added. Maybe that affects it, but the New Day just passed Kendrick and London as the longest reigning combined tag team champions, combined reign. And so they became the number one for that. Not concurrent reign, but combined reign. So the New Day I would like to see stay together. But if you look at other teams and who could possibly benefit from breaking up, obviously the Wyatt family is one of those groups that when they first came out, I was very, very intrigued. Because the way WWE did it was Bray Wyatt's first match was against Kane at SummerSlam in that Inferno match. And then you kind of got the big sense about Bray Wyatt. And then for the next couple months, the focus went to Luke Rowan and Eric Harper as a tag team. So you didn't get burned out with Bray Wyatt. And eventually booking led to them, really not being much of a force. And, it just did not work out with the rumors of Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania not happening, even though it was teased. It could still happen at SummerSlam, which could lead to something being big. Now, #Hatch came out, and we thought that it might be the reveal of Sister Abigail, and it wasn't. It was for WWE 2K17. And then Bray Wyatt himself has been tweeting out images regarding Sister Abigail. And when you honestly think about it with the Wyatt family, they could benefit in the fact that I still think that Bray Wyatt could be money his face. He finally realizes, you saw what happened on the night after Mania when the crowd was cheering him. He was sitting there just taking it all in. And I think him as a face would be a lot easier to pull the trigger on than it would be for Roman or, Seth Rollins. For Seth Rollins just to flip face after, doing everything as a heel versus Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt could get sympathy behind him, even though the injury gave Seth Rollins all the sympathy in the world and he should have been face. It just, WWE decided not to pull the trigger. Maybe they're just testing it. We'll have to wait and see. But the Wyatt family could lay out Bray. Bray could get his revenge, and it could ultimately, set him up for, he took down his own family. The thing he created, he could take down. So he ultimately ends up taking down Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, which would be an interesting way to book it. And it's kind of, cool to see. And I say it's cool because I don't want to see him get burnt out. Brock Lesnar is a special attraction. And last year he wrestled more matches than he did before. I think the year before he wrestled like 3 big ones. at Royal Rumble, that throwaway match against Big Show, and then the Mania match, leading up to that. But other than that, we don't need to see him wrestle every month. So the fact that he wrestled at Mania against Ambrose, keep him off for at least 3 or 4 pay-per-views until the SummerSlam time. So that would be an issue or an instance where a breaking up a team would work. The Wyatt families would be a great example. Now, I know a lot of people like the Usos, and there's a lot of people that dislike the Usos. They say that, being with his cousin, Roman Reigns, has kind of been the death grip. That they used to get cheers, they used to be kind of over, and then Roman Reigns happened, which I would somewhat agree with, but at the same time, the Usos just have kind of, I don't know. The Usos fell out for me a long time ago. They're a cool tag team. I like them. Watch them on Total Divas or their Ride Along. They're great guys. I just, as a tag team, I don't really care for them anymore because there's a lot of young blood and a lot of other tag teams that are, I got a little choked up there because I think about the Usos. They had such potential and then it just didn't work. They still kind of get pops. This whole super kick thing, I think the super kick thing in general with the indies, it's just people kind of mock them and crap on them for the super kicks, but then they love when guys in the indies do it. So I don't necessarily see that as a problem, but there's just something with the Usos that aren't clicking. Now, when you look at something like the Dudley Boys, you have a proven track record of Bully Ray of being able to be a heel, and, I don't know if WWE officials have watched him in TNA, but he could do a great job. He's kind of heels right now with his brother, and the Dudleys are the money for them. So I don't think that they would break up Bully Ray and, Devon. They might be able to do it to get rid of Dudleyville to show off the talents of Devon or Bubba Ray. But would WWE actually do it with the amount of NXT superstars or the amount of, talent they're going to need to fill 2 or 3 hours? There may be a reason to break them up and put Bully Ray in a spot to be heel instead of a tag team. But when you look at the tag team division, having a team that can help put over guys, and that's what Devon and Bubba understand, helping put over the next generation. And, somebody tweeted him out about young talent being buried, and he responds with everybody that's over. Charlotte and the New Day and everybody else that's, doing very, very well, which I appreciate the fact that they get it, and it's awesome. Now, you look at a group like the Club, and this is where I've said before in the video when I talked about the Club and John Cena, which you can go back and watch, having John Cena and the Club feud and have John Cena get his victory or maybe his loss, and then you break them up and you put the Club on one show and Cena on one show, and then ultimately the Club does not follow guidelines of a brand split. It's a brand expansion, but they just show up whenever they want. Now, it wouldn't happen every week. Like I'd say, if a brand split happens the very, very first week, what happens on a live SmackDown? You are not expecting the Club to be there. Cena could get a championship match, so everybody's bitching and complaining. Wow, Cena's he faced the Club, and he beat him. He buried him. Now he's going for a title match. And you would get this huge speculation of, wow, Cena buried the Club. And then as Cena's about to win the title, whether it's the World Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown, which would be a great way if they did introduce a second title or a World Heavyweight title, to have somewhat of a tournament and have Cena be in the finals, where the Club didn't interfere at all in the first couple rounds, and then it comes to the big one, the championship match, say you did it after 3 weeks of being on SmackDown before a pay-per-view. And then all of a sudden you had the Club come out in the finals and decimate John Cena, so the younger talent, whoever Cena was facing, could get over. They would be the champion, not Cena, so he wouldn't, break the record or do whatever he has to do. And then you'd be like, wow, the Club is there. And then so every week, Cena's like, is the Club going to show up in my matches? So Cena's kind of watching his back, and then for like 1 or 2 weeks, they don't show up. And then all of a sudden, there's a backstage beatdown. There's a lot of great booking they could do with a brand split, especially with a heel faction that doesn't follow the guidelines of the parameters that have been set up on who's supposed to be on what show. And I think that's where it would benefit, especially if they make a rule like, well, if you're champions, you can go between. Okay, well, you have the Club decimate the New Day, and they could get the title so they could flip between shows as kind of a workaround. But I definitely see something like that happening. Now, Enzo and Big Cass, I don't even want to talk about or speculate them breaking up. Although I will say with Enzo's injury, Big Cass did look like a star, and eventually I think if Enzo and Big Cass do split up, Big Cass does have a good future within the company. I think he could really, really get the crowd behind him. Now, those are the teams. But what about storylines? You have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, which is probably one of the best feuds going just based on the history from WWE and based on everything pre-WWE that they've gone through. their friendship, all the matches they've done, all the big spots they've done, Ladder Wars 4 with on top of a ladder. I still want them to face for a ladder. If one of them wins a Money in the Bank and then they have a ladder match between each other for that briefcase and they do half of what they did in Ring of Honor, oh my God, the WWE fans would lose their mind because they did the same ladder spot at WrestleMania that they've done for years on the indie scene. So it'd be really cool to see. But, you don't want to get it burnt out. They've already, kind of really hammered it home after Sami Zayn being back from injury. Well, before a final blow-off, you could have them split shows. And that would save Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens until maybe a supplemental draft. You could put it out a year, 6 months, until maybe a trade happened at some point. And that would be a way to prolong a feud. So when it comes to the brand split, having feuds be delayed would be great. Like Roman versus Seth Rollins. They have a huge history together. But if one of them was to be drafted to another show before, like, let's say Seth won or Seth lost and they had a rematch or something like that, and one of them got drafted to the other show, you could keep them and prolong that storyline so you're not getting burnt out, which is a great way to do it. So if you were to see a team breakup or a feud get broken up in a brand split, so you guys could, prolong it, you could see it longer, you could experience it without, having it done now definitively. Because when Kevin Owens beat Sami Zayn clean in the middle of the ring and Sami Zayn come out, it's not the end. But do we really want it back-to-back-to-back pay-per-views, or do we want it spread out over time? Let me know in the comment section below what feuds, what teams, how's it going to affect in the brand split. Until next time, it's your boy Tubby Emu.